But let's get to what happened last night. President Trump last night addressed the nation for the first time since starting a war with Iran. The roughly 20-minute speech was meant to make the case as to why the conflict is necessary. Yet he gave very few details and repeated his vague timeline for when it may end.
For these terrorists to have nuclear weapons would be an intolerable threat. The most violent and thuggish regime on earth would be free to carry out their campaigns of terror, coercion, conquest, and mass murder from behind a nuclear shield. I will never let that happen, and neither should any of our past presidents. This situation has been going on for 47 years and should have been handled long before I arrived in office. Many Americans have been concerned to see the recent rise in gasoline prices here at home. This short-term increase has been entirely the result of the Iranian regime launching deranged terror attacks against commercial oil tankers in neighboring countries that have nothing to do with the conflict. This is yet more proof that Iran can never be trusted with nuclear weapons. They will use them, and they will use them quickly. Iran has been essentially decimated. The hard part is done, so it should be easy. And in any event, when this conflict is over, the Strait will open up naturally. It'll just open up naturally. They're going to want to be able to sell oil because that's all they have to try and rebuild. It will resume the flowing, and the gas prices will rapidly come back down. Stock prices will rapidly go back up. I've made clear from the beginning of Operation Epic Fury that we will continue until our objectives are fully achieved. Thanks to the progress we've made, I can say tonight that we are on track to complete all of America's military objectives shortly, very shortly. We are going to hit them extremely hard over the next 2 to 3 weeks. We're going to bring them back to the Stone Ages where they belong.
So, Willie, I think the national reaction to a lot of what the president said last night will be negative across other media outlets, and it may be quite negative from the friends that we have around the table today, and very smart people, smarter than me, that are sitting around the table. I do want to go through a few things because I often fact-check Donald Trump, and it's usually fact-checking him in a way that is quite negative. But in this case, I'm going to fact-check a couple of things that are the established belief of the foreign policy establishment in Washington, D.C. Number one, he said a nuclear Iran is intolerable. I think most foreign policy experts in Washington, D.C. believe that. It is intolerable. He said they have been building this strength for 47 years. This should have been taken care of much earlier. That is also a belief. I've had several intel officers who did not like how the war began. Some of America's greatest experts on Iran through the decades telling me, I don't like how this war began. I don't like the lack of planning. But at the same time, presidents have been kicking the can down the road. If we didn't go in now, we were eventually going to have to go in. So he's correct there. This should have been taken care of earlier, 47 years earlier. The president said most of our military objectives have been met, will be met over the next 2 to 3 weeks. Again, whether you're talking to military or intel officials, they will tell you, yes, that is also true. And again, we have to separate military objectives with political objectives. Those are two radically different things. But on the military side of the ledger, the president may be correct. On the political side of the ledger, of course, serious problems with the straits. I suspect we may, the Wall Street Journal, and I mean, it is remarkable. We say it all the time. It is remarkable, though, the work the Wall Street Journal is doing. They seem to lap their competition every morning. And this morning, they have stories about the islands that control the flow of oil, not just Karg, but the others throughout the straits. I suspect that may be, those islands may be targets directly or indirectly. And maybe that's why the buildup is going. I've just noted the timing of the Wall Street Journal article. But anyway, Willie, so those are on the plus side of the fact check. On the other side, the president said the hard work's been done and things are going to get easier from this point on. I don't think that's the case at all. I think this has continued to be a difficult situation, which is one of the reasons why the UAE, the Saudis, a lot of our other allies don't want the president to cut and run. They want him to stay there another 2, 3, 4 weeks and try to get as much of the job done as possible. And then the president said that the straits were going to open up naturally. No, they're not. They're not going to open up naturally. We're either going to have to get a deal with the Iranians or we're going to have to figure out a way to force those straits open. The European allies are incapable of doing that. Our allies in the region are incapable of doing that. The only force that can do that is the United States military. And we either do it directly or we do it hopefully through negotiations. But that's my rundown of the speech. I'm curious what you thought.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot in there. I mean, obviously, I think most people agree with you that a nuclear Iran is intolerable. It's just unclear in this latest version of the war how that has been debilitated, how the nuclear program has been debilitated. If it wasn't already obliterated, to use the president's term, last June, what has changed through this operation over the last month or so? I think we can officially abandon hearing the 2 to 3 week timeline since he says it every day, which means that timeline hasn't changed and has been saying it for a long time. So don't put much stock in that. And obviously, like you said, opening the straits will open naturally when we leave. That's not true. The short-term increase in gas prices here at home, very dismissive of what people are living through and going through right now at $4 a gallon. Oil up again today. The market's down again today. And Richard Haass, I think there's just, he's abandoned the idea of regime change, suggesting that was never a goal. He said that explicitly the morning after the invasion started. So I think as facts on the ground have changed, perhaps it's been more difficult than he expected in terms of Iran's response to it. The objectives have changed along with it so that he can somehow declare victory.
No, absolutely. I'm reminded really a little bit of Senator Moynihan. When he once talked about defining deviancy down, we kind of lower our definitional standards. That's what we're doing here in Iran. We've lowered the standards. We've changed the standards. To say regime change has happened is essentially preposterous. Where I think I take a little bit of issue with Joe is on the nuclear. Yeah, no one wants to see Iran with nuclear weapons. That is a vital American national interest. The question is, though, how we accomplish that goal. And it's not obvious to me we've advanced our aims through the use of military force. There is probably not going to be a military solution to the nuclear challenge. One way or another, we're going to head back to the negotiating table, which, by the way, is exactly where we were at on the eve of this war. So I still don't think last night, if the president was trying to make the case for this war, both what it accomplished and why it had to be launched, when it was launched, I don't think it was a sell.
Well, I think it's an uphill sell for this president. And again, just facts here. It's a president who hasn't paid for gas himself or hasn't had to worry about what the cost of a gallon of gas is and hasn't served this country in the military. And on top of it, has been previously critical of the potential of other presidents invading Iran.